Parshat Vayishlach is a parsha of homecoming for Yaakov Avinu, first reuniting with his brother Esav, and then finally coming back to Hebron to his father Yitzchak. And yet, Chazal, the rabbis of the Talmud, are critical of Yaakov, and they state that Yaakov was punished, that for the 22 years he was away from his parents, he too was separated from his son, Yosef, for 22 years until he reunited with him in Mitzrayim later on in the story. And the question is, why are Chazal critical of Yaakov? After all, his parents sent him away, and he needed time to get married, to start a family, to develop a livelihood, and then he returns afterwards back to his parents. Why are they critical of Yaakov? In what way was he at fault? I believe the answer can be found in our Parshat Vayishlach. When Yaakov returns, he doesn't return immediately to his parents. It takes him a full 2 years to return back home. First, he stops in Sukkot, then in Shechem, he even purchases land there, then in Beit El, and finally, at the end of 2 years, having left Haran, he finally returns back to Hebron. Chazal, I believe, looked at those 2 years and said, I understand, Yaakov, you needed to be away from your parents for 7 years for your first wife, for 14 years for the second one, for 6 more years to work. But why didn't you rush home right afterwards? What took so long, those extra 2 years? And when they looked at those 2 years, they said, it must be that even though it was a priority of Yaakov's to return back home at the beginning of those 22 years, over time it became less of a priority to return home and fulfill the mitzvah of kibud vaem in honoring his parents. So much so that when he left Haran, it took him 2 years. He wasn't rushing home. And because of those 2 years, Chazal comment and they say that Yaakov Avinu was punished for the entire 22 years. Because it shows us that it wasn't a priority which was front in his mind throughout the time by Lavan. There's a story of a man who's affectionately known as Moshe Moskowitz. He was one of the children living in Masuot Yitzchak in the Gush Etzion region, who was evacuated in 1948 when that community, along with Kfar Etzion, was destroyed. And for the next 19 years, Moshko and a few of the other survivors from that area, they would stand at the edge of Yerushalayim and they would look towards this one lonely tree, this oak tree, the alon, and they were yearning to return. It wasn't a reality for them, but they were yearning to return. So much so that in 1967, after the 6-Day War, when the opportunity presented itself for them to return, he was the first one to go back. And together with Rav Yehuda Amital, they began Yeshivat Har Etzion, and then began the community of Alon Shvut, and from there, the entire Gush Etzion region flourished. All because that remained a priority for him, even though it couldn't be actualized. I believe that Chazal are teaching us the importance of maintaining our values, our priorities, even when life gets busy, when we need to make compromises, when we're not able to actualize all of our dreams. We want to spend more time with our family. We want to spend more time davening. We want to spend more time learning. We have a dream of making aliyah. It's not always practical. It's not always a possibility. But the more that remains a priority in our lives, that when the opportunity presents itself, we will be able to jump at it. Shabbat Shalom.